So with secondary builds being essentially gone next patch, I figured it'd be really fun to take a look at some of the more unique, interesting builds you could run going full secondaries on battleships. And so I'm looking at Alsace, full secondaries, IFHE, as well as Shikishima, full secondaries, IFHE. This means that Alsace, all of its secondaries are able to pen superstructures, and its 152s are then able to pen, I believe it's 32 it can get up to. I actually haven't checked that since IFHE rework, but it should be able to get over 32. And then Shikishima means that all of its 100mm secondaries get over 32mm. And with these builds, you have around a 2-second reload on those secondaries. Which is insane. So I had a couple really fun games playing these two ships, and just wanted to have some fun before it's no longer possible to run these as effectively as you currently can. The main issue is just that it doesn't matter how cheap they make the build, it doesn't matter how fast the guns fire, it doesn't matter how long the range is on the secondaries. If you don't have the accuracy to hit anything, who cares? Right? Like, any shells that land in the water don't matter at all. So that's why I think that secondary builds aren't going to be very good next patch, and I wanted to have some fun messing around with some builds that maybe aren't optimal but are fun in this one. So as you can see, this game we don't have very much of a team over on this flank, so I'm still pushing anyway because that's just what I want to do. And this is actually a pretty solid build for this ship. I don't know if it's exactly optimal, but it's not bad. It is definitely not bad. If you're curious, the build is just all in secondaries. I'll show you at the end what I'm looking at, but I even have the upgraded modules to get faster secondary reload and range and all that stuff. And so with this ship, you get, I believe, 12 guns on each side of the 100mm, and they reload quick. Really, really quick. So it's kind of hilarious to see the amount of shells in the air at some points. We'll be secondarying a Freddy later on and just try and count the number of shells in the air. I bet you can't. It's hilarious. But partially because he was shooting back at me with secondaries, I believe, too. But to play these ships, again, you're trying to use islands. Obviously, I got very lucky this game because Tier 9 matchmaker, no CV, makes it way easier to play. And here, I could sit on this island and just try and secondary things, but I'm not confident that the secondaries will shoot over this island. That's kind of one of the downfalls of secondaries, is the aiming system and when they fire is all based on some random wargaming coding that isn't very useful. So I end up deciding to kite, and it's probably a good decision too, because if the Freddies have IFHE secondaries, well, then they're able to full pen me everywhere on all of my armor. So we don't really want to deal with that. So the goal right now is to secondary the Georgia while staying outside of Freddy secondary range, which is around 12.5 kilometers. Or sorry, 11.5 kilometers. 12.5 is GK next patch. But 11.5 currently on the Freddy, which, you know, is pretty good range still. And just look at the amount of shells we can fire at this Georgia. I'll show you at the end, but just keep an eye out for the damage we actually do, just raw secondary damage, not even the fires, just the raw damage. It's hilarious. And this ship, even without aiming systems, can have reasonable dispersion. 12 guns, of course, can hit things pretty hard sometimes if you get the right salvo. And for some reason, Alsace feels very tanky. It felt incredibly tanky this game. It shouldn't, because it only has 32mm of armor everywhere, and that should just get melted by basically everything. But for whatever reason, this game it felt like tankier than a Freddy or a Bomber or something like that in this game. This Georgia, meanwhile, is melting under the firepower of our secondaries. I didn't even lead that shot enough to get a nice Citadel hit, but it doesn't matter because we got secondaries. And look at the damage tick up. We're already at 105,000 damage. These builds are just fun. They're just very fun, honestly. I have a ton of fun with it, just seeing all the shells in the air, the Georgia's shooting back at me, all that good stuff. It's gonna be great. Playing these builds usually isn't possible in tier 10, I've found. I mean, it managed to make it work a little bit with the Shikishima, but tier 10 matchmaker is so full of carriers and long-range HE spammers that pushing in is usually a suicide, so you don't want to do that. But with tier 9, you can get away with it a bit more, and it seems like this ship is a pretty good one. I actually haven't really played this ship at all with IFHE Secondaries. I just kind of assumed it was too all-in, and I had a Bourgogne to play anyway, so I just played that instead. But I actually think this is more fun, or this is about as fun as Bourgogne. I wouldn't say more fun, because Bourgogne is a very fun ship, but Secondary Alsace is pretty fun. I had a good time with this match. As you can see, already up to 142k, and the Georgia has to back away and get out of secondary range just because the pressure we applied was so insane. 203 hits already. Maybe not the most accurate hits, but pretty good all the same. Unfortunately, this is the one downfall of battleships in general. The closer you are, the more likely it is you can just slap someone through their superstructure, regardless of angle. Notice he was at a 10-degree angle to me about, and we still hit him for 9k with AP through his superstructure. It's one of the main reasons it's hard to do these kind of pushes and use this build at tier 10. Ships are just more accurate, dealing more damage, and your superstructure is very, very vulnerable on most of these, on most secondary battleships. It's very, very big. That's the primary reason the Kurfürst feels so weak when you go Brawl in secondaries. And that's why Kremlin feels so strong. Even though their armor schemes are pretty similar, actually, in practice. But the superstructure on the Kremlin is just so tiny. That's why it feels like it's tankier than a GK. Because a GK, you just shoot its superstructure and you just deal tons of damage to it and you're fine. Now, unfortunately, there is a DD around us that is constantly keeping us spotted, so we're going to have to deal with that eventually. But just look at the amount of shells we're raining in on this Freddy. It's so fun. I wish they would keep something like this in the game, or maybe make it so it's manual controlled, so it's not like an automated system. That kind of thing would be cool. I don't know, but I think it would be a lot of fun. Just look at the number of shells there. It's so fun. Now it feels like a real fight, like duking it out, brawling it out when these secondaries are going like that. I really feel like that. It's awesome. And hearing the secondary numbers tick up, you know, we're already at 300 secondary hits. Fortunately, we do end up dodging the the DD's torps, and we end up actually getting this Freddy with the secondaries. High caliber, close quarters expert, pretty fun game. I had a lot of fun with this one. Now we ended up going and trading with the Unicum, but 211k with 344 secondary hits, and then just take a look at the alpha damage out of the secondaries. 50,000 alpha damage out of secondaries. It's pretty good. It's pretty good when you get these crazy games like that where you're able to use the full power of the secondaries. And with Shikishima, of course, you pen 32 millimeters, so you're penning battleships on most of their armor. Not all of it, but if you can find yourself, well, an Alsace or a Republic or a Bourgogne or a Thunderer, any of those things, your secondaries are going to full pen everywhere, and it is glorious. Now, we find ourselves up against a Vermont this game, so not full penning it everywhere, but he has a large superstructure, and, you know, the bow and stern we can full pen as well, so this is going to be a good time, I think. And you'll notice that the turrets are Harugumo turrets. There's literally a Harugumo strapped to each side of a Shikishima. That is how much secondary firepower there is. Oh, and it gets a faster reload than Harugumo does too. So if the accuracy was similar to what you could get out of a player-controlled Harugumo, the DPM would be even better in on Shikishima secondaries. So if you've got this ship and you haven't tried a full secondary build, I would recommend it. It's pretty hilarious. I have a lot of fun with this one. Of course, you're not going to be leaderboarding with this. Of course, it's not meant to be played seriously. But, I mean, it's random battles. Just go out and have a good time, you know? And you still get pretty decent accuracy, all things considered. But, yeah, this Vermont's melting. He pushed in a little too far. I mean, we got a lemming train here, let's be honest. So, it's not his fault. He just ended up dying there that quickly. But, you know, we got a lot of secondary hits very quickly there. Up to 112 and, you know, 41k damage. I don't actually have the end score screen for this one. For some reason, the game glitched out and thought that this game wasn't a part of my session, so I couldn't actually look at the end score after this game. But I'm very sure we did some pretty solid secondary damage as well with this one, given just how many shells we hit and how much they pen. Hey, you know, we get 12 hits on a Grozavoy. With our secondaries, you know, that's pretty good. In fact, 15 secondary hits. That's quite a lot, and we know all those penned. Now, skipping forward a little bit, I kind of played pretty passive because I was really low on HP after eating a torpedo. Now we only have one heal left, if you notice, but here comes the Yamato into our secondary range. It's so fun. And what I loved about this is it was so hard to get into secondary range that at least these builds kind of made it worth it once you had the full build on and you were full penning and getting fires and all that stuff. But I mean, sure, the builds are going to be cheaper in the new patch, but I don't see the point in running them anymore. I don't know. I'll be testing it out, don't you worry, but my initial impressions is just kind of sadness that this is going to be going away. There you go, you can see the Hirigamo turrets. Pretty fun. Now, these builds are obviously not optimal, but they're fun. But the other problem with the new patch, just going back to that real quick, is that gunboat DDs and long-range HE spam cruisers are both getting buffed. As well as long-range battleships, let's be honest. Deadeye, or whatever that perk is called, that gives you 10% better accuracy when no ships are inside your concealment range. That's a buff to long-range battleships. So, it's going to be just a lot harder to push in. That's basically all I'm saying. And these builds are going to be less rewarding. So, it's a little sad, but, you know, I'll deal with it. But let's take a look at the captain build real quick. So, like I said, the captain is all in. You have no survivability skills whatsoever. You're taking Adrenaline Rush, you're taking BFT, you're taking AFT, you're taking IFHE, taking Manual Secondaries. These two can be whatever you want to. Those don't really matter too much. And the end result of all that, plus the auxiliary armaments mod and the range mods, you don't even get better accuracy or better reload. The end result of all of that is that your secondaries fire every 2.1 seconds and pen 37 millimeters and go 11.6 kilometers. And then the 155s also pen 32 on this thing. They fire slower, but the main event on a Shikishima is definitely these Hirigamo turrets. But the builds are all in. You gotta be fully committed to just messing around and not having a good time and not taking yourself too seriously. And same thing here, the build's the exact same. You get 21 mils of pen though, so that is just enough to let you to pen Battleship and everybody's superstructures and some destroyer hulls as well. So just enough to get that, and then the 152s end up penning only 31. I was actually wrong earlier in the video. Only 31 on these 152s. So it's just about penning those superstructures and some cruisers too as well. It's all in, man. It's an all-in build, and if you're wanting to have some fun, definitely try these. If you enjoy a Massachusetts, these could be a fun one for you. They're not as good as the American premium secondary battleships. Those are by far the best secondary battleships in the game, but they're fun. Just given how fast they fire, they're pretty fun. So, thanks for watching, guys, and I hope you have a great day.